Ambassador Li Hyun felt her heart racing as the transport shuttle docked with Kepler Station. Through the small porthole, she could see the massive structure spinning slowly against the backdrop of distant stars. 3 years of careful planning had led to this moment, humanity's first official meeting with alien civilizations. "Ambassador, we're cleared for boarding," announced her aide, Kim Sol, checking her tablet one final time. Behind them, a small team of diplomats, scientists, and cultural experts waited nervously in their formal blue uniforms. The airlock hissed open, revealing a corridor unlike anything human eyes had ever seen. The walls seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light, and the air carried unfamiliar scents, something like cinnamon mixed with ozone. Li Hyun stepped forward, her footsteps echoing strangely in the alien atmosphere. A figure approached them, floating rather than walking. It was tall and thin, almost see-through, with what might have been a face, if faces could be made of shifting mist. When it spoke, the voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Welcome, travelers from the small blue world," it said in perfect Korean, though Li Hyun knew no human had taught them the language. "I am Guide Yathera. The council awaits your presence." They followed the floating being through corridors that curved and twisted in ways that made Li Hyun slightly dizzy. Other creatures moved past them, some walking on multiple legs, others sliding along the walls. A few that seemed to be made entirely of geometric shapes that constantly rearranged themselves. The council chamber was breathtaking. 7 different species sat arranged in a half-circle on platforms that adjusted to each being's unique needs. The walls were made of the same crystal as the corridors, but here they shifted colors constantly, blues and greens when the atmosphere felt calm, warmer golds and reds when emotions ran higher. At the center sat High Counselor Vextera, clearly the same species as their guide, but larger and more defined. Her form sparkled like starlight on water, and when she spoke, the crystals around the room hummed in harmony. "Welcome, gentle beings of Earth," she announced, her voice carrying notes of what sounded like genuine warmth. "Your peaceful transmissions have traveled far across the galaxy. We have listened to your music, studied your art, and marveled at your philosophy of cooperation." Li Hyun bowed deeply, as she had practiced countless times. "Honored counselor, we come as representatives of humanity, seeking friendship and understanding among the stars. We bring gifts of knowledge and culture, hoping to learn from the wisdom of the Galactic Confederation." Over the next several days, the human delegation shared everything they had brought. Dr. Park Jun presented their medical advances, technologies designed to heal genetic diseases and extend healthy lifespans. Professor Yunmia played recordings of human music, from ancient folk songs to modern symphonies. Artist Namki displayed holographic galleries of paintings, sculptures, and digital art from across Earth's cultures. The alien council members seemed genuinely fascinated. The insect-like Kresh clicked their mandibles, and what their translators indicated was appreciation. The Vorthok, those gas-like beings, swirled their forms in patterns that apparently expressed joy. Even the Nexari beeped and chirped in rhythm with the human music. "Your species shows remarkable creativity," observed Counselor Thexmore, a creature that looked like a walking tree with eyes scattered across its bark-like skin, "and such dedication to peaceful pursuits. We have observed your recent history, how you ended your global conflicts through diplomacy rather than destruction." Li Hyun nodded proudly. "We learned that cooperation achieves more than competition. Our wars taught us that violence only creates more problems. Now we focus our energy on exploration, art, and helping each other." What the humans didn't realize was the effect their presentation was having on the Council's understanding. These aliens had known peace for so long that they had almost forgotten what war looked like. Their own conflicts were settled through complex negotiations and bureaucratic processes. The idea of actual fighting seemed primitive and barbaric to them. How refreshing, whispered Counselor Sexy, a being made of what appeared to be living metal, a species that has evolved beyond the need for violence. They seem almost incapable of aggression. Behind the scenes, the Council's military advisors were taking notes. These humans appeared to have no significant defensive capabilities. Their ships were designed for exploration and transport, not combat. Their technology focused on healing and building, not destroying. Even their entertainment showed heroes who solved problems through talking and clever thinking rather than fighting. As the formal presentations concluded, High Counselor Vexthera's form glowed with what the humans interpreted as pleasure, but was actually something closer to satisfaction. The Council had made their assessment. In the private chambers where humans were not allowed, the official records were being updated. The entry was simple and direct. Species designation, Homo sapiens. Classification, passive civilization. Post-conflict development, minimal defensive capability. Recommended status, suitable for protectorate integration. Threat level, negligible. The humans, unaware of these discussions, continued to share their stories of peace and cooperation, never realizing that their greatest strength was being mistaken for their greatest weakness. Captain Kim Dae stared at the holographic display in disbelief. The emergency transmission from Kepler 442b had arrived just minutes ago, but the images were already burned into his memory. The mining colony that had been thriving just last week was now nothing but twisted metal and scattered debris. How many? He asked quietly, though he already knew the answer would be terrible. 37 confirmed dead, sir, reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Yoon-ha. Her voice was steady, but Kim Dae could see her hands shaking as she read from her tablet. 15 more are missing. The medical bay, the housing units, even the children's school, everything is destroyed. The attack had happened during the colony's night cycle. Security cameras showed dark shapes moving quickly through the settlement, weapons firing bright beams that cut through buildings like paper. The colonists had no time to defend themselves. Most were asleep when the attackers struck. Within hours, an emergency session of the Galactic Council was called. Ambassador Lee Hyun sat in the familiar crystalline chamber, but this time the atmosphere felt different. The walls pulsed with darker colors, deep reds and purples, that made everyone feel uneasy. This is a tragedy beyond words, declared High Counselor Vexthera, her translucent form flickering with what appeared to be sadness. We have reviewed the evidence. These were clearly pirates, the same lawless groups that plague many outer systems. Counselor Vexmore's tree-like form rustled, with agitation. Such attacks are unfortunately common in the frontier regions. The galaxy is vast, and not all areas can be properly protected. Lee Hyan felt a cold anger building in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. Counselor, we need immediate assistance. Our people are injured and dying. We require medical support and evacuation capabilities. Of course, Vexthera replied quickly, but this incident shows how dangerous space can be for peaceful species like yours. Perhaps humanity would benefit from proper protection. Before Lee Haeon could respond, her communicator buzzed with an urgent message from Earth. Fleet Admiral Choi Min was mobilizing the rescue fleet. Every available medical ship, transport vessel, and reconstruction team was being sent to Kepler 442b. Immediately, the human response was swift and organized. Within 6 hours, a convoy of 23 ships was racing toward the attacked colony. The rescue fleet included the hospital ship New Seoul, 3 heavy transports full of emergency supplies, and a dozen smaller craft designed for evacuation and disaster relief. Captain Park Soo stood on the bridge of the New Seoul as they approached the devastated colony. Through the main viewport, she could see the damage clearly now. Buildings that had housed families were now just piles of rubble. The central plaza, where children had played, was a crater filled with twisted metal. "Ma'am, we're getting some strange readings," reported Lieutenant Kim Min from the sensor station. The energy signatures from the attack don't match any known pirate weapons. This technology is more advanced than anything pirates usually have. Park. Sue frowned as she studied the data. The weapon signatures were clean and precise, not the crude, improvised weapons that pirates typically used. These looked almost military grade. But she kept her observations to herself for now. Noted Lieutenant. Continue scanning for survivors. The rescue operation began immediately. Medical teams in white uniforms moved through the wreckage, searching for anyone still alive. Engineers started clearing debris and setting up temporary shelters. Supply ships began distributing food, water, and medicine to the survivors who had hidden during the attack. What struck the Zephyrian observer, Sub-Counselor Kethrix, was how efficiently the humans worked. Their ships moved in perfect formation. Their teams knew exactly what to do without being told. Everything was planned and coordinated like a military operation, but their weapons remained completely powered down. Fascinating, he whispered to his recording device. Even when facing an attack on their own people, they show no aggressive response. Their ships carried defensive shields, but they're configured only for protection, not for fighting back. The human rescue teams worked for 3 days straight. They pulled survivors from collapsed buildings, treated the wounded, and began rebuilding essential facilities. Not once did any human ship power up its weapons or attempt to track down the attackers. Ambassador Li Yun personally visited the colony, walking through the devastated streets and speaking with each survivor. She promised that Earth would provide everything needed to rebuild, but she made no threats of revenge or retaliation. This is exactly what we expected, Sub-Counselor Kethrix reported back to the Council. The humans respond with compassion and aid, but they show no capacity for military action. They are clearly a species that has evolved beyond the ability to defend themselves properly. Back on Kepler's station, the Council members gathered for a private session. The crystal walls glowed with soft blue light as they discussed humanity's future. They need our guidance, declared Counselor Vexthera. This attack proves they cannot protect themselves in the dangerous galaxy. As the dominant power in this region, we have a moral obligation to offer them our protection. Agreed, said Dexmore. They are like children who have wandered into a dangerous forest. We must take them under our care before something worse happens. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would be offered protectorate status, essentially becoming protected subjects of the Galactic Confederation. It would be presented as an act of mercy, a generous offer to keep these gentle beings safe from the harsh realities of galactic politics. None of them realized they had just made the greatest mistake in the history of their civilization. Admiral Choi Min was drinking her morning coffee when the alarms began screaming throughout the bridge of the engine. She set down her cup carefully, watching as her crew scrambled to their stations with practiced efficiency. After 30 years in the Terran Defense Force, she had learned that panic never solved anything. Report, she ordered calmly. Lieutenant. Commander Park Jae's face was pale as he stared at his sensor display. Admiral, we have massive fleet signatures appearing at the edge of the solar system. 300 ships, possibly more. They just materialized out of nowhere. Through the main viewport, Choi-min could see tiny points of light that hadn't been there moments before. As the ship's computers enhanced the image, the alien fleet became visible, sleek vessels with smooth, curved hulls that reflected the light of Sol like mirrors. They moved in perfect formation, spreading across space with the confidence of beings who had never been challenged. Ma'am, they're hailing us, reported Communications Officer Yun-ha, her fingers dancing across her control panel. It's coming through on all frequencies simultaneously. They want to speak directly to Earth's leadership. Put them through. The main screen flickered, and suddenly, High Counselor Vexthera's translucent form filled the bridge, even through the holographic display. Her condescending attitude was unmistakable. The way she held herself, the gentle tilt of her head, the soft glow around her form, It all screamed of someone speaking to a child who needed guidance. "Gentle humans of Earth," Vextera began, her voice carrying that same musical quality they had heard at Kepler Station, but now it sounded different, less welcoming, more like a teacher explaining something obvious to a slow student. "We bring greetings from the Galactic Confederation and an offer of great generosity." Choi Min remained silent, her expression carefully neutral as she listened. "Your recent experiences in the outer colonies have shown us how dangerous the galaxy can be for peaceful species like yourselves. The attack on your mining settlement was tragic, but predictable. Without proper protection, such incidents will only increase." The Admiral's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The investigation into that attack was still ongoing, but preliminary reports suggested the energy signatures didn't match any known pirate technology. The timing of this generous offer was suspiciously convenient. "Therefore," Vextera continued, "the Council has voted unanimously to extend Protectorate status to humanity. Accept our guidance, place your colonies and trade routes under our administration, and you shall know true peace. Your people will be safe, your resources properly managed, and your gentle nature preserved." The transmission paused, and Vexthera's form seemed to grow brighter, more imposing. "You have 72 hours to consider our generous offer. We await your acceptance." The screen went dark. The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of the ship's fusion reactors and the soft beeping of monitoring systems. Every officer on the bridge understood what they had just heard. It wasn't an offer, it was an ultimatum disguised in pretty words. Captain Oh-jin, the Ancient's commanding officer, broke the silence first. "Admiral, what are your orders?" Choi Min walked slowly to the main viewport, her hands clasped behind her back. Earth hung before them, blue and white, and beautiful, looking exactly like the peaceful world the aliens believed it to be. The planet showed no obvious signs of military power, no orbital weapons platforms, no defensive stations, no visible fleet beyond the small group of exploration vessels currently docked at the civilian space stations. But appearances, as the Zephyrians were about to learn, could be very deceiving. "Communications, open a secure channel to Fleet Command. Authorization code Omega-77, Choi Min ordered, her voice carrying a new edge that made her officers straighten in their chairs. Yunha's fingers hesitated over her controls. Omega-77 was a code she had hoped never to hear. It meant that peaceful solutions were no longer possible. It meant that humanity was about to remember skills they had spent generations trying to forget. "Channel open, Admiral." "Fleet Command, this is Admiral Choi Min aboard the Inchin. We have a hostile fleet of 300 ships holding our solar system under threat. I am hereby activating Defense Protocol 7 and requesting immediate authorization for Project Hammerfall." The response came within seconds. Fleet Admiral Kim Won's gruff voice filled the bridge. "Authorization granted. Choi Min, Hammerfall assets are powering up now. Show them what happens when someone threatens Earth." Across the solar system, things began to change. On the dark side of Luna, massive doors that had been sealed for decades slowly opened, revealing caverns that stretched deep into the moon's core. Ancient asteroid mining facilities suddenly came online, their fusion reactors blazing to life after years of carefully maintained dormancy. Hidden within the asteroid belt, objects that had been catalogued as research stations began extending weapon arrays that had never appeared on any public blueprint. Mars orbital shipyards, supposedly producing only civilian transports, started revealing the true nature of their recent construction projects. The Zephyrian fleet waited at the edge of the system, confident in their overwhelming numbers and superior technology. They had studied human capabilities extensively. They knew about Earth's small exploration fleet, their peaceful mining operations, their complete lack of military infrastructure. What they didn't know was that humanity had learned something important from their violent past. The best way to Keep peace was to be prepared for war. And after centuries of theoretical development, hidden construction projects, and carefully concealed preparations, they were very prepared indeed. Admiral Choi Min smiled grimly as status reports began flooding in from across the system. 72 hours, she murmured. They want an answer in 72 hours. She turned back to her crew. Well then, let's make sure we give them one they'll never forget. The countdown timer on Admiral Choi Min's personal display showed exactly 1 hour remaining when she made her decision. 71 hours had passed since the Zephyrian ultimatum, and it was time to respond. Communications. I want a direct channel to every Zephyrian ship in the system, she ordered. Override their security protocols if necessary. Lieutenant Yunha's fingers flew across her console, but after several minutes, she looked up with frustration. Admiral, their networks are completely locked down. Military-grade encryption on everything. Choi Min smiled coldly. Use the Phantom Protocol. The bridge fell silent. Every officer knew what that meant. Humanity had been secretly studying alien technology for months, learning their weaknesses, mapping their systems. The Phantom Protocol would slice through their defenses like a knife through paper. Within minutes, Yunha nodded. We're in, Admiral. Every ship, every command center, every communication system in their fleet is now accessible. Open the channel. Across space, on 300 Zephorian vessels. Admiral Choi Min's image suddenly appeared on every screen simultaneously. Emergency alarms began wailing on alien ships as their technicians realized their most secure systems had been completely compromised. High Counselor Vexthera, Choi Min began, her voice calm but carrying an edge sharp enough to cut steel. You have made a fundamental error in judgment. You looked at our extended hand of friendship and mistook it for weakness. You saw our choice to be peaceful and assumed we had no other options. On the Zephyrian flagship, Vexthera's translucent form flickered with what could only be described as shock. Impossible, she whispered to her technicians. How did they breach our security? Choi Min continued, her image now burned into every alien screen. You attacked our colony and called it pirates. You threatened our world and called it protection. You demanded our surrender and called it generosity. Allow us to correct these misunderstandings. The Admiral raised her hand, and somewhere in the darkness of space, ancient systems came alive. The space around Luna suddenly exploded with light. Massive shapes that had been hidden in the moon's shadow began to emerge. Not the small exploration ships the Zephirians had catalogued, but vessels of war built with one purpose in mind. These ships were long and angular, their hulls black as space itself, covered in weapon systems that had never appeared in any diplomatic database. Captain Park Soo stood on the bridge of the destroyer Busan, watching her tactical displays light up with target information. Her ship had been disguised as a scientific research vessel for 2 years, quietly studying alien technology and mapping their weaknesses. Now its true purpose was revealed. All weapon systems are showing green, Admiral, she reported through the fleet communication network. Kinetic bombardment platforms are locked onto priority targets. Quantum torpedo arrays are charged and ready for firing sequence. Across the human fleet, similar reports came flooding in. The heavy cruiser Seoul reported its plasma cannon arrays fully charged. The stealth frigates Incheon and Daegu had already moved into flanking positions. Even the ships that appeared to be simple transports were revealing hidden weapon bays filled with guided missiles. High Counselor Vexthara tried to maintain her composure as she opened a return channel. Humans, you do not understand what you are doing. Our fleet consists of 300 ships with technology far superior to yours. Stand down immediately and we will still honor our generous offer. Admiral Choi Min's expression didn't change. Fire. What happened next lasted exactly 17 minutes. But those 17 minutes changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The human attack began with the kinetic bombardment. Platforms, massive railguns that fired tungsten rods at significant fractions of light speed. The Zephyrian shields, designed to stop energy weapons and small projectiles, were completely useless against solid metal moving at relativistic velocities. Captain Park Sue watched through her tactical display as the first salvo struck the alien flagship. The Zephyrian vessel, for all its elegant design and advanced technology, simply disintegrated. One moment it was there, the next it was expanding debris and superheated gas. Target destroyed, reported her weapons officer. Moving. 2 secondary targets. The Zephyrian fleet tried to respond, but their formations were already falling apart. These aliens had known peace for so long that they had forgotten the basic principles of combat. They bunched their ships together for protection, making them easier targets. They tried to retreat in straight lines, making them predictable. They broadcast their tactical communications on frequencies the humans had been monitoring for months. Sub-Counselor Thrix, aboard what had been the secondary command ship, watched in horror as human tactics tore through their defenses like they were made of paper. The humans didn't just shoot at them, they herded them, trapped them, isolated their command vessels and picked off their support ships with surgical precision. "How is this possible?" he gasped, watching another Zephyr cruiser explode under a barrage of quantum torpedoes. "They're supposed to be peaceful." His aide, a young Vorthok named Zethmir, was studying the tactical displays with growing understanding. "Sir, they are peaceful, but they chose to be peaceful. There's a difference." As the battle reached its climax, Kethrix realized the terrible truth. Humanity hadn't abandoned violence because they were incapable of it. They had abandoned it because they were too good at it. These beings had nearly destroyed their own world through warfare, and when they finally achieved peace, they had never forgotten the lessons that peace had cost them. With his ship's systems failing around him, Kethrix managed to send one final transmission to the surviving vessels of the Confederation. "Emergency alert to all Council members. We have made a critical error in our assessment of humanity. They are not gentle by nature. They chose to appear gentle. The difference is everything." The transmission cut off as the Byzant's torpedoes found their mark. The conference room aboard the flagship Sol was deliberately designed to be not soft lighting, comfortable seating arranged in a circle, and walls displaying peaceful images of Earth, forests, oceans, and cities where different cultures lived together in harmony. But despite the welcoming atmosphere, every alien representative who entered the room could feel the tension in the air. High Counselor Vexthera was the last to arrive. When she materialized in the room, her translucent form flickering like a candle in the wind, it was clear that the events of the past week had shaken her to her core. The proud, condescending being who had offered humanity protection was gone. In her place stood someone who had seen her entire worldview crumble in 17 minutes. Around the conference table sat representatives from all the major species of the Galactic Confederation. The insectoid Crush delegation kept their mandibles tightly closed, a sign of extreme nervousness in their culture. The tree-like Nexari swayed slightly, their bark-covered forms rustling with anxiety. Even the mechanical Zorthi, who rarely showed emotion, were making small clicking sounds that indicated stress. The door opened, and Admiral Choimin entered, followed closely by Ambassador Lee Hyun. Both women walked with the same calm confidence. They had always shown, but now everyone in the room understood what that confidence really meant. These were not gentle beings who happened to be in charge. These were warriors who had chosen diplomacy first. "Counselors," Lee Hyun said, taking her seat at the head of the table, "thank you for accepting our invitation. I want to begin by making something very clear about humanity's position in this new situation." She looked around the table, meeting each alien representative's gaze directly. Her voice was calm and friendly, the same tone she had used during their first meetings at Kepler Station, but now the words carried additional weight. We genuinely wanted peace. When we came to your station 3 months ago, we brought our best art, our most beautiful music, and our hopes for friendship among the stars. Everything we showed you was real. Our desire for cooperation was sincere. Vexthera's form flickered more brightly, and when she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Then why, how could you, how could we be so effective at warfare? Li Heian finished the question. Because, counselor, you made a fundamental error in understanding what peace really means. You assumed that because we chose to extend open hands, we had forgotten how to make fists. Captain Kim Dae, who had been promoted to serve as military liaison after the battle, activated the holographic display in the center of the table. The three-dimensional image showed the current positions of human fleets throughout known space. The aliens could see that humanity hadn't conquered anything. They had simply revealed capabilities that had always been there, hidden and waiting. Our ancestors nearly destroyed our world through warfare, Admiral Choi Min explained, her voice carrying the weight of historical knowledge. We learned the true cost of violence. We chose peace not because we were weak, but because we understood the terrible price of being strong. The Kresh representative, Mandible Singer Thixjor, made the rapid clicking sound that indicated extreme agitation. But the deception, you pretended to be helpless, We never pretended anything, Li Heian replied firmly. We showed you exactly who we are, a species that values art, music, cooperation, and peaceful exploration. The fact that we're also capable of defending ourselves doesn't make those values false. She stood up and walked to the display, pointing to various star systems where human ships now waited quietly. The terms of our new relationship are simple. Humanity will join the Galactic Confederation as a full member species. There will be no protectorates, no subject worlds, and no assumptions about anyone's capabilities based on their choice to be peaceful. The Nexari representative, whose name roughly translated to Deep Root, rustled his branches nervously. And what of the Zephyrian territories? Their colonies, their trade routes, will be administered by a joint council until new leadership can be established, Admiral Choi Min answered. We have no interest in becoming conquerors. We simply want to ensure that no one else makes the mistake of confusing peaceful intent with weakness. Thixjor's mandibles clicked rapidly. And if we refuse these terms? For the first time since entering the room, Ambassador Li Hyun smiled. It was the same warm, friendly expression she had shown during their first diplomatic meetings. But now everyone in the room remembered what had happened to the Zephyrian fleet. You won't refuse, she said simply, because now you understand the difference between choosing peace and being unable to defend yourself. We choose to be gentle. We choose to be kind. We choose to offer friendship first and cooperation above all else. She walked back to the table where a new charter lay waiting, a document that would reshape the power structure of the entire galaxy. Her hand rested casually on the papers as she continued. But never, ever, make the mistake of thinking our choices are limitations. The steel beneath our velvet glove is very sharp, and we remember exactly how to use it. More importantly, we remember why we choose not to, most of the time, one by one, starting with the most nervous Kresh and ending with the still-shaken Vexthera. Each representative signed the new charter. As they did, they realized they weren't signing a surrender document. They were agreeing to a new kind of peace, one where strength and gentleness could exist together, where choosing diplomacy was respected precisely, because everyone knew what the alternative looked like. The galaxy would never make the mistake of underestimating humanity again.